Well, hey there, you guys. Just having a little bit of coffee here this morning in my owl mug while we talk about shame. Because who doesn't love a cup of coffee and a nice dose of shame? Don't we all, especially Thursday morning? You're almost to the weekend though, so that's pretty exciting. And we're going to talk about shame. Because this last weekend I went to like a retreat or whatever with church, and I got up and I talked a little bit about shame, and just by looking at people's faces, and I'm not just talking about women, I'm talking about men and women, both of them. And I don't think I always realize that just because I've learned something doesn't mean that everyone else understands it and has learned the same thing or will learn it at the same pace. But what I was sharing about shame, and I just noticed by faces that there are most people related in the sense that they're like, I definitely feel shame. And then you could see a very few people that understood what I was talking about being free from shame. And you could tell the difference because the people who felt free from shame, you could see that their faces they were lit up. They were smiling. Other people were like, shame, yeah, like I know. So we're going to talk about what a waste of your time shame really is. So the first thing we probably should talk about, I suppose, is what exactly is shame. So I did a little dictionary lookup and wrote it down here so I could read it to you. The online Webster Dictionary defines shame as a noun, so a painful feeling of humiliation or distress caused by the consciousness of wrong or foolish behavior. You're going to use it as a verb, so an action word. It's the shaming of a person, an action, or situation, making someone feel ashamed. And I think it's, after you know what exactly shame is, I think pretty much everyone can identify it. It's when you feel really bad about something, like you've screwed up, you're a failure, you blew it. That's kind of shame. And I think you should look at your life, and you probably can already pick out what exactly shame does to you. Most of you would probably just say, it makes me feel really bad. So I'm going to try and put in a clip here, but if not, I'll put it under this video. But it's a clip from Despicable Me. And if you've seen the movie, probably love it just like I do. But it's the scene about the Girl Scout cookies, the failure to sell them, and the introduction to the box of shame.
So how did it go, girl? Did we meet our quotas?
Sorta. We sold 43 mini mints, 30 choco swirlies, and 18 coconutties.
Okay. You say that like it's a great sale day. Look at my face! Do you still think it's a great sale day? 18 coconutties. I think we can do a little better than that. Don't you? Yeah. We wouldn't want to spend the weekend in the box of shame, would we? No.
No, Miss Hattie.
Okay, good. Off you go. Go clean something of mine.
Hi, Penny. Bye, guys.
So after you watch that, the box of shame is going to be, that is my visual picture for you of what you're doing to yourself when you dwell on something in the past. Like, let's just use this as a context, because I hear this a lot from women my age, early 20s, late teens, and then on through the rest of their life. And one that I hear over and over and over again is from women who, if you have expectations for what you want your life to look like, and the example I'm going to use is saving sex for marriage. So if that's something that is really important to you, and you've crossed lines, or you have sex, or whatever it is that crosses a line you've set for yourself, most women, they feel bad about that, and they feel shame, and they actually kind of start to let that define how they look at everything. Like, oh, I'm a failure because I did something wrong. And it gradually kind of takes over your life. So you start thinking, well, if I fail at that, I mean, I'm not a whole person anymore. Like, I'm damaged goods. I'm not as good as I could have been as a person. I'm not as worthy. All of those things stem out of feeling shame. And it definitely influences how you behave in the rest of your life. Because if you don't feel like you're good enough because of a failure, dwelling in that shame just gradually sucks away everything wonderful about your life, and you are defining yourself simply by your shame. And yeah, so you put yourself in that box. Shame doesn't come from God. God does not shame you. He doesn't say you weren't good enough and you blew it again. Shame on you. Like, feel terrible, feel humiliated. That's not Jesus at all. And if that's how you feel, then I think it's really important that you recognize the box of shame. You are the one who puts yourself into the box of shame. Like, Satan definitely has a hand in that, and he wants you to be in the box of shame, because if you're in the box, you're not living a full life, obviously. The kid in the box clearly isn't as happy as the other girls. Obviously, they're not happy either, but you know what I'm saying is he's limited. He's trapped in a box. He cannot go anywhere. He cannot continue to grow or do anything if he's trapped in that box. So then comes in my next little picture, and how do we escape shame if it's something we do to ourselves? And also this weekend I heard this little analogy of it involves like a parent and then a child that's learning to walk. So I put them, for me it would be, I put it into context of me and little Thatcher, who I nanny, and he cannot walk unless like I hold his hands. So you know, like when a little baby is little and you like hold their hands and like, oh come on, you like walk them around. So me holding onto Thatcher's hands would be like God. So you could put this in context of you and God if you want to. So parent, child, whatever, I'm going to use me. So me and Thatcher, if I'm in the role of God, I'm holding on to Thatcher's hands. So if he were to let go, if he were to trip, if he were to fall, whatever, to make him stumble, it doesn't matter because I have a hold of his hands. So even though he's holding on to me, like if he were to let go, it has no effect on him falling because I have a hold of him. And that picture is kind of how grace works, is no matter what Thatcher does, no matter what you do, even if you trip and fall and you stumble, like you screw up, God's grace covers you and it will catch you every single time. Like there's no reason you need to be worried, like, oh, God's gonna just, well, ha ha ha, laugh at you, feel bad that you tripped on that rock. That's not how it works. And then the second part of that picture is faith. I think is a really hard thing to understand, and I hear a lot of people being like, oh, I've lost my faith, like I don't understand faith. But here's a good way to look at it, is like Thatcher choosing to hold on to my hands, and it's a choice, and him choosing to hold on to me and trust me, that's a picture of faith. So like even if Thatcher's starting to walk, so I'm in front of him, I'm not actually holding on to him, and so you could say like, oh, he can't actually see me there. He's trusting, he's having faith that no matter what happens, whether he can walk on his own or if he trips and falls, his faith, his choice is that he's choosing to trust that grace will cover him. Like there's no way I would ever have Thatcher walk to me and let him trip and just fall. I would catch him. And so I think that's important to really grasp, is that grace will never ever let you fall, and it doesn't shame. So even if you trip and fall and you've done something, you've crossed the line, whatever, that makes you feel ashamed, there's no need. In light of grace, there's no place for shame. There's no place. It is a waste of your time. It is a waste of your feelings. It is a waste of your energy. It is a waste of your life. Don't put yourself in that box of shame. And a song I was thinking about over the weekend, it's called Unashamed, haha, by Starfield, and I think the chorus goes, I know I'm weak, I know I'm unworthy to call upon your name, but because of grace, because of your mercy, I stand here unashamed. And that's what Christ does for us in our relationship with him, is he's given us that grace, and he doesn't see us as shamed. So you've got that grace to screw up, and you don't have to stand in shame. You can get out of that box and live in the light of grace and forgiveness, and be unashamed. So if that's like the tip of the iceberg. There's a lot more to study, and I know that shame is something everyone will struggle with their whole life. But if you can learn to live and walk in truth, so you're not repeating to yourself over and over, I'm so ashamed, I'm so ashamed. You can start to break out of that and understand that that's a lie and you're not walking and living in truth. That's a great start. I'm putting a link down here to a Bible study that's online, and it's called Defeating Guilt and Shame, because who doesn't want to do that? And it's from greatbiblestudy.com, so you know it's it's good. And I started to read through it. I'm almost through it, and it is really good. But this little line is what I'm going to leave you with. And if this really resonates with you, I highly encourage you to click on this link down here and go read through that and just ask that God would help you to change your mindset, because yes, you put yourself in the box of shame, and getting out of that is easier said than done, and it's a group effort between you and God, and you having faith and trust that God's grace can keep you out of that box. But I pulled this line out of here, and I'll leave you with this, and it just says, feeling ashamed keeps us from confidently approaching God's throne and having an intimate relationship with Him. The Bible tells us that the blood of Jesus was shed so that we can confidently approach an intimate relationship with our Heavenly Father. And so that's my hope for you, and I hope that's your hope for you, and I hope that somewhere in here something just clicked with you and you can think about it today and slowly begin to think about getting out of that box of shame if that's where you're at. So, happy Thursday.